2017 was a big year for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, after all, it was the year that it released. Almost every month of the year, Nintendo had something to offer. Among the heavy hitters of the Switch's launch year, like Zelda, Mario Kart, Splatoon, and Xenoblade, Nintendo would unleash their newest IP to the world, ARMS. First unveiled to the world at the Nintendo Switch presentation event in January of 2017, ARMS was set up to be another big multiplayer offering from Nintendo. I remember when I first saw the trailer for ARMS, I was a bit confused, but also very intrigued. The premise of ARMS is that a bunch of individuals wake up one day with springy, extendable arms and hair for this chick. Of course, the obvious use for these arms is to immediately start punching the other people with these arms. And hey, don't you think that punching the ever-living daylights out of the guys who have this genetic mutation would make for a great sport? And thus, the ARMS League was born. Led by the producer and team behind Mario Kart 7 and 8, ARMS was an interesting experiment for the launch year of the Switch, especially due to its use of the Joy-Con. However, after updates for the game halted in December of 2017, ARMS kinda got overlooked and forgotten due to the Switch's ever-growing library of games. Well, let's rectify that, shall we? Join me as I take a look back at ARMS and ask the question, do you remember ARMS? Real quick before this video starts, I just want to clarify that all of the gameplay footage seen in this video is being recorded on the Nintendo Switch 2. ARMS did receive an official Switch 2 patch that optimizes the game for the Switch 2's hardware, so just know that the visual quality and frame rate may be different than when played on the original Nintendo Switch. That being said, my experiences with ARMS have been on the original Nintendo Switch, and will thus serve as the basis for this video. Now with that clarified, on with the video. Chapter 1. Let's see what those arms can do. ARMS gameplay is the biggest selling point for the game. All of the fighters in this game come equipped with extendable arms that are used for long-range boxing. There are two main ways of control in ARMS. The first is the advertised motion controls, where you hold the Joy-Con like boxing gloves. This is known in-game as the thumbs-up grip. In the thumbs-up grip, you rotate the Joy-Con to move, thrust each arm to throw a punch, thrust both to grab, and angle them in to block. You also use the shoulder buttons to dodge, jump, and rush. Using the motion controls in the thumbs-up grip is actually really intuitive and one of my favorite uses of motion controls I've ever used. If you couldn't tell, this is my preferred playstyle for this game. The second control option is using button controls. Now, whenever the option is given to me to use button controls in a motion control game, I will usually take it. I would never have finished Skyward Sword HD if a button controls option wasn't included. Now that's a hot take. Personally, I don't really like the button controls in ARMS. I don't ever feel in control, and I always feel like my opponent has the upper hand. It just feels like the game was really designed for motion controls, and the button controls were just tacked on for handheld mode. I remember playing the Global Test Punch and trying out both styles and promptly siding with the motion controls. That's just me though. I know there are a lot of button controls defenders out there, so all the more power to you button users. The basic ARMS punching gameplay doesn't really change no matter which fighter you pick. But the thing that really does shake up the gameplay are the arms, capital ARMS. There's a good amount of arms to choose from in this game, all equipable by each character, although you can only have 3 arms set to a character at a time. There are tons of arms with different weight classes, elemental abilities, and gimmicks to choose from. My go-to loadout, per se, is a standard-like boxing glove fist, a multi-shot or gimmicky fist, and a heavyweight fist. The great thing about these arms is you can mix and match them how you please to fit your fighting style. I'm a big fan of this customizability, and I remember spending a good chunk of time finding the arms that worked for me. The fighter you pick might not affect the basic arm punching controls, but your fighter choice kinda affects everything else gameplay-wise. There are 15 fighters to choose from in ARMS, and they all have their own little gameplay quirks. like how Springman gains permacharge at low health, or how Min can do a parry kick in the air, and Helix can shrink down into the ground. The various fighter abilities make each fighter worth giving a shot. I remember maining Ninjara and Min back in the day. Let me also just say that the fighter designs are just top notch in this game. They're all so colorful and vibrant, and they all also have like a backstory and lore and a reason why they're participating in the ARMS Grand Prix. The whole game's art style and design is very colorful and fun, just like the fighters. I've got to give it to ARMS for having a very intriguing gameplay idea, and I think the execution works quite well when using the motion controls. I also really like all of the customization options and the fantastically designed cast of fighters. I remember being hooked on the gameplay right from the global test punch, and then later when I purchased the game fully. The one thing that kid me didn't appreciate that old me now appreciates is the game's fighter design and art style. It's just top notch. Chapter 2. Where are you gonna use those arms? With ARMS being a 3D boxing/fighting game, you've got to have some arenas to fight in. Just like the fighters, there are 15 arenas to pick from, with each one acting as like a home stage for each fighter. Each arena also has its own unique gimmick. For example, the Ribbon Ring has blocks that will rise and fall during the match, and the Snake Park has spinning tops for you to ride, and the Scrapyard having destructible pillars and ramps galore. These arenas are fantastically designed as well. Much like the fighters, the arenas are pumped full of color and character. I don't ever remember there being one I disliked. I did usually stick though to the more flat stages. I do want to touch on the various modes in ARMS as well, and your main modes here are Grand Prix, Versus, and Online, which for some reason was split into 3 separate menu items. Grand Prix is a 10-match circuit and competition for the title of champion. 2 of the 10 matches though are not standard fights, but mini-game battles. Something I find interesting about Grand Prix is that due to its length, you're able to save and quit and then pick up from where you left off later. I like Grand Prix, however, I wish there was an option to turn off the minigame rounds. Think of Grand Prix like classic mode from Super Smash Bros. Versus mode is where a lot of this game's content is. In Versus, you have both solo and team fights, which I was surprised coming back to the game for this video that ARMS supports up to 4 players. I do remember doing quite a bit of multiplayer, but ARMS was never my go-to when it came to playing with other people. That was Mario Kart. I also didn't have enough Joy-Con for all people to use motion controls, which is kind of the way everyone played. I mentioned minigame battles when talking about Grand Prix, and they are accessible here on their own in Versus. These are V-Ball, Hoops, and Skill Shot, and I don't remember ever liking these that much. I remember liking Skill Shot the most out of the 3, but in Grand Prix, the CPUs would always win, so I would just crash out. V-Ball and Hoops are their respective sports, just ARMSified. Hoops is funny though, as you grab and dunk your opponent instead of a ball. Also part of Versus is Headlock Scramble, in which you and your opponents fight for this thing called Headlock, which temporarily gives you 4 extra arms. This mode is actually a good bit of fun, especially when there's like more opponents. Lastly, in Versus, there is a 1-on-100 survival mode and a random arms mode. I don't ever remember playing these back in the day, so I really don't have much to say. The random arms mode, dubbed Arms Test, is an interesting idea as it encourages you to try the many different arms. Finally, we have our online modes. These are separated into party match and ranked match, or as I like to call them, for fun or for glory. Also, for some reason, online with friends is a separate selection in the menu. They really could have just stuffed all of these into a single online menu, like Versus. I guess they just wanted to make it seem like there was more going on than there actually is in this game. I only remember going online like once or twice, as well as for the global test punch, of course. Real talk here, I wasn't very good at ARMS back in the day, so I stayed as far away from online competition as I could. I do, however, remember playing online with my friend once. That's all I got. There was also an event similar to Splatfests from Splatoon called Party Crash. I never participated in these either, but I wanted to mention it in case any of you participated in these. The last thing I will touch on in this section is how you get the different arms for your fighters. In this mode, you will pick a a fighter and then pay with in-game cash for a timer, and then play a skill shot game where you go for a high score and the presents that hold the new arms. I like this little mini game a lot, plus I got cool new arms from it. Overall, ARMS stages are fun to play on and excellently detailed. Most of the modes as well are also pretty fun to play, both solo and co-op. I'd say there's a good amount of fun stuff to do in this game. Chapter 3. You can't deny that the main theme of ARMS is iconic. I almost guarantee that the only thing that comes to your head when ARMS is brought up is that main theme. It's not only just the main theme of ARMS that slaps, I was pleasantly surprised while going through this game's soundtrack at how many bangers this game has. Whether it's a menu theme or in an arena, there's just something so fun, energetic, and get this, bouncy about the music in ARMS. Some tracks from this game even got remixes for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate when Min Min was added as a fighter. While the whole soundtrack is good, there's just a couple of tracks from this game I want to highlight for you all. I know I already said some things about it, but the main theme is just a straight bop, with the vocals, the brass, and the electric guitar. If you've been a viewer of this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm an absolute sucker for any song that uses traditional Japanese instruments, like Ninja College does. Likewise, Ramen Bowl uses some traditional Chinese instruments, and I especially love the erhu in this one. Moving across the world, the use of European instruments in Via Dulce is especially dance-worthy. The last track I'll touch on is a Versus Headlock in Grand Prix, which is just straight up metal with some strings and actually sounds like it would fit really well for a Bowser's Castle race course. I think ARMS might genuinely have one of the most overlooked soundtracks in Nintendo's library. Definitely gonna have to add some of these to my playlist once the ARMS soundtrack hits Nintendo Music. At the end of the day, ARMS has left an interesting legacy. While the game halted regular updates at the end of 2017 and it seemed like something Nintendo just straight up forgot existed, in 2020, Min Min was added to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as the first DLC character of Fighters Pass 2. I was kind of expecting Nintendo to do something ARMS related, either paid DLC or ARMS 2, but it was crickets from Nintendo concerning ARMS. 5 years later, and after I'd forgotten that ARMS even existed, Nintendo mentioned ARMS again, only for them to announce an official Nintendo Switch 2 patch for the game. It's kind of goofy to me that they would update an 8-year-old game that they constantly forget about for their brand new console. Anyways, even though ARMS will probably be lost media at some point in the near future, I hope that this journey through ARMS was one that sparked memories of bright, fun, and colorful characters and stages, some of the best motion controls I've used, and a fun soundtrack that will get you bouncing out of your seat. The real question I have for you all today is this: will you remember ARMS?